Hi, and welcome back to another episode of In Service and In Play with MJ. Today I am here with my good friend Bronwen Chisholm, and we're going to spend a few minutes talking. I know when I started the channel, I was talking to you guys about the fact that I was getting ready to turn 51, and that day has come. I am now 51. And so I am trying to appeal to that demographic. And with that in mind, I invited my good friend Bronwen to come and talk to us today. She has some pretty exciting things to talk about. She is a published author, but I'm going to let her tell you that story. So, Bronwen, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, to start, tell me, who is Bronwen Chisholm?
Well, I grew up in York, Pennsylvania. I am the youngest of 4 sisters. In fact, I'm the youngest by 10 years. So I, in some ways, was an only child growing up. My parents were much older. I was not an anticipated child.
Surprise!
But I have always had a love of literature. I grew up reading, and eventually I ended up coming here to Virginia because I met a man, of course. Men instigate us to do a lot of things that we wouldn't think we would otherwise do. And had 2 children, a son and a daughter, and who are now off doing their own lives. And I am 56 years old, so I am in your demographic.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't want to interrupt. Okay, good. So you said you have 2 kids.
Yes.
You said you have a husband that inspired you to move out of Pennsylvania down to Virginia.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your family dynamic.
So my husband is an African American man, and our children are of mixed race.
Cool.
We actually were dating during the 90s, so there was,
Okay.
Yeah, we've been together a long time.
So when that wasn't a kosher
not
thing.
necessarily a kosher thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
He actually tells stories about how I tried to get him killed one time. Because I was not in a clear state of mind, and we were looking for somewhere to eat, and we ended up going to a town which had had race riots the previous week that I forgot that had happened.
Okay.
And so it was good. We ate, we left, we were good.
Good. Well, as luck would have it, or circumstance, whatever you want to call it, we have known you and Rob now for a few years, and you guys are in a similar situation. I, too, am married to an African American male. Now, my husband and I didn't get married until 2010, so society was a little bit different. Not much, but a little bit different by that time, and we were both in our second marriages, and so the children that we have, we each had in our previous relationships. So while we are a blended family, none of our children are mixed race. So we have 2 children that are African American, 2 children that are white. So very similar circumstance. And then of course, we know that, and I'll let my viewers know, your husband is a retired police officer, which is near and dear to my heart because I too am a retired police officer. So tell me a little bit about what was it like. So you're a mixed race couple in the mid to late 90s. You are having children that are now being raised mixed race, and he's in law enforcement, which has not been popular. So tell me a little bit about what that was like, being the wife of a police officer.
So my husband was actually a federal police officer. He worked on a military base, and in a lot of ways I saw that as a safer law enforcement position. And but even that, several years ago, they lost one of their officers because he fell asleep behind the wheel.
Okay.
And my husband was driving 40 minutes to work, working 12-hour shifts,
Sure.
and then driving 40 minutes home.
Right.
So there were times that I talked him home
Sure.
because he was tired.
Right.
There were times where I just, prayed if he got tired, he would pull over.
Right.
There were also times when, towards the end, before he retired, where the new officers coming in were not as aware of their situations, not quite suited to the position,
Mm-hmm.
where I began fearing them putting him in a dangerous position.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those things had shifted. And then, of course, with the upheaval that was going on in the country, I started pressing for him to retire.
Okay. So post Ferguson,
Exactly.
post George Floyd, all that stuff,
Exactly.
you were
Yeah.
pressing for him to retire.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if my viewers know this, but my husband, African American, also retired law enforcement. So my situation a little bit different than Bronwen's. I at least had the benefit of being married to another police officer, so we kind of understood the job that we each did. A little bit different for you, being at home, concerned about his safety. Not that I wasn't feeling the same way, but, and I know it was also different for them in a lot of regards because there was upheaval in the country. There was a very, the Black Lives Matter movement was, very active, and there kind of came this divide in society. Like you had to be on one side or the other. It was very, a very charged situation, and interesting because both of our husbands, both African American, but also both law enforcement.
Right.
And so,
Well, and also there was a divide within the police department.
sure,
Because you had the Caucasian officers and you had the African American officers.
right,
And there was a lot of girl-boy
right,
networking, which was part of the problem of why the officers that were being brought in were not vetted well,
sure,
and things along those. So there was just, the entire atmosphere had changed so much from when he first got
Right.
in it in the early 2000s to when he retired in 2022.
right,
That it was, yeah,
it was
it
time.
was no longer a healthy environment,
Sure,
mentally and emotionally, but also it was becoming physically dangerous,
right.
more dangerous.
So it was time.
It was time.
Okay, fair enough. And that, very similar to our circumstance, we both left law enforcement in 2020. So just a couple years prior to when he decided to retire. Excellent. So 2 kids,
Yes.
boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl,
Okay.
one of each. We were done. It's funny because when I was growing up, I always wished I had an older brother. So we had our son first, thank you God, and then 4 years later we had our daughter. I remember thinking around about the time she was 8 and he was 12 that I was so thankful I hadn't had an older brother growing up. But the two of them now are so close.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. That's, again,
Yeah.
son and daughter, 3 years apart in age, and that's how they are. They're still they live on opposite sides of the country, but they're still pretty tight.
Well,
That's nice to see.
They're within 4 hours of each other,
Okay.
so they actually, my son just went to spend a week with her
Okay.
not too long ago because he was feeling a little frustrated with his roommates, so he decided to take a break. But yeah, they're really close. It's funny because around about the time that Nick was 2, my husband started training him to, when you have a baby sister, you're going to have to protect her. She's going to be your responsibility and that type of thing. So he has always felt very protective and guarding of her.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. Okay, so before we actually sat down to talk on camera, you kind of gave me a little bit of insight, and I want to start talking about your writing.
Okay.
Because your kids kind of factored into that.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's kind of dive into that.
Okay.
And what got you started with writing?
Well, like I said, I was 10 years younger than my closest sister growing up. There was a lot of times when they would like go do something, and 9 times out of 10, I was sitting somewhere with a book. I always had multiple books that I was reading, and around about the time I was in my late 30s, early 40s, I was taking my kids to every practice. Basketball, football, cheer, rehearsals for plays, different things like that. And I was sitting and waiting while they did their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, I was reading. And I read a couple books that I just was like, I could do better than this. So I started playing around with it. I thought, well, let me see what I can do. And so all those times when I was sitting at rehearsals, I had a notebook with me.
Okay.
And I just started writing out stories. A scene would come to mind, and I would just write it down. And then I'd try and piece them together and see where it could go and what I could do with it. So
Cool.
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So for my viewers, you can probably see our background. These are Bronwen's books flashing up on the screen. She has 9 of them. They're available on Amazon. So now I want to get to these books in particular.
Okay.
So I see that pretty much
They're
all okay. They are all Pride and Prejudice inspired
Yes.
stories.
Yes.
So what got you into that?
So in 2008, I was working with I was sharing an office with a younger coworker, Tomasa, and she was in her early 20s at the time. And we got talking one day about movies and things, and she said, well, you've seen the Pride and Prejudice 1995 miniseries, right? And I went, the what? And you could have knocked her over with a feather. You never read Pride and Prejudice. You have never seen this video. And I said, no. And the next day I come in, and I'm going to date myself. The VHS tapes were on my desk. And for some reason that weekend I was actually alone, and I got to watch the entire thing. Came back into work on Monday, and I told her, I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Our office was above a library, so at lunchtime we went down and I borrowed Pride and Prejudice and read it in a day or two, and borrowed Sense and Sensibility and on, went through all the Jane Austen books. And then I was like, there's got to be more. I mean, I know she's been dead for 200 years, but there's got to be more. And so I found fan fiction.
Okay.
And there's so many Jane Austen inspired fan fiction sites, but I started reading it there, and then I discovered that some of these were actually published. So I started reading them on Amazon and everything, and just fell in love with it. Well, at the time, I was working on a suspense romance, and it wasn't going well. There were some writing techniques that I didn't know. I didn't know how to implement them. So I started taking Pride and Prejudice ideas and using them to improve my writing skills.
Okay.
So they were my practice material before I actually put it into my regular writing. So that's how I got into the Pride and Prejudice.
Okay. And now you have kind of a interesting situation where you work full time,
Yes.
but you're still able to write.
So I am an office manager in a real estate company. And when I was hired, my boss told me, you're going to have downtime, and I'm okay with you reading during that downtime. And I said, well, can I write? And he said, so I was talked to him a little bit about my writing, and luckily he was an English major in college.
Okay.
So he said, yeah, sure, you know, you can write in your downtime. That's fine, no problem. I do a lot of my writing at work. I do some at home. I don't have any kids at home anymore to take to practices, so I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So you have a little bit of a tip of the hat too.
Yes, I do.
Your
My
boss.
boss's name is Fitz. So, and it just so happens that there are 2 characters in the original Pride and Prejudice who have the name Fitz in their name, Fitzwilliam Darcy and Colonel Fitzwilliam. So in every one of my books, one of them is nicknamed Fitz.
Nice.
And that is my tip to him.
Nice.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you're getting ready, second week of October, to participate in a book fair.
I am. For a little over a decade, I was the vice president for our local writing chapter of the Virginia Writers Club.
Awesome.
The local chapter is Riverside Writers. And every year that they have it, we participate in the Fredericksburg Independent Book Festival. And it is October 12th this year between 10 and 4. So it's the second Saturday in October. It's going to be held at Riverside Park on Sophia Street in Fredericksburg. We will have a table there. I'm also participating in a panel on historical fiction.
Cool.
And it is also coincides with our chapter's normal monthly meeting.
Okay.
So we've gotten permission from the festival in October, we normally hold a members open read. So the festival has allowed us to conduct our open read at the festival.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so there's going to be a lot of our members reading too.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So if people want to find your books, where can they find you?
Amazon. So
Okay.
I am my books are in ebook and paperback form, and they are on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
I also am a monthly blogger on alwaysaustin.com.
Alwaysaustin.com. Okay.
And because I am currently going to school and don't have a lot of time to do a lot of research for my blogs, I have been blogging my latest book, one scene at a time.
Okay.
And that's been going on for a while, so if you go to there and Google Bronwen, with an EN, not a YN,
Okay.
that you will find my current listing, current writing on there.
And will you eventually compile that into a full?
Because
piece?
that's on a blog, that won't be part of the Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
However, because I can't put it on Kindle Unlimited, I will put it for sale for a very low price.
Okay. Great. And are you on Facebook or Instagram?
I am on Facebook and Instagram. It's Bronwen Chisholm.
Bronwen Chisholm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Bronwen, Bronwen Chisholm. Awesome. Okay. And so, again, a reminder, October 12th
From 10 to 4
10 to 4
at Riverside Park
on
Sophia
Sophia
Street in Fredericksburg.
So if you are local to the area or you're going to be in the area, make sure you stop by the book festival. We have attended a couple of times and it's awesome, and you'll obviously get to see Miss Bronwen and some of her club members, and they'll be doing some open reading from some of their works. I want to thank you so much for joining me today and for talking to my viewers. It's always exciting to me you and I have been friends for a couple of years now, but I rarely get to sit down and really, there's always surface conversation and, what's going on immediately in our lives now and what's current, but finding out about how you started something and how something became important to you is always really interesting to me when I get to know people a little bit better than I otherwise would. And so, you know, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this channel because it's allowed me to get to know people a little bit better, and I look forward to doing more of that. And don't worry, we will be having her husband in the hot seat in the not too distant future, so you will get to meet the other half of Bronwen soon. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe so that you know when I release new content, and thank you for joining us today. Bye.